समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Just when you thought that things were getting better between India and the United States of America, and perhaps with Donald Trump's birthday call to Prime Minister Modi, there was a real thaw in the air, well, think again. In what can only be called a move that, even if not targeted at India, is certainly going to have consequences for thousands of Indian professionals, Trump has announced a dramatic new change in the H-1B visa policy, $100,000 annual fee. And this announcement has been accompanied by some rather coarse comments from the US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who's basically said, well, either prove that you're valuable enough or go home. The Prime Minister hasn't named Trump, but he has already responded in a very obvious allusion to the United States of America at a public event. Prime Minister Modi said, the only weakness India has is the dependency on other countries, and Indians have to work together to end this dependency. How do we understand the consequences of the H-1B, the H-1B visa regime shift from the Trump administration? I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo story. To some degree, this announcement should have been expected. The MAGA base that is devoted to Donald Trump has been ratcheting up an anti-India, anti-South Asia even sentiment and anti-immigration, immigrant sentiment, despite Indian Americans often being called the model minority community in the United States of America. Even the ironic fact that most big tech companies in the United States of America today have Indian linkages or are headed by somebody who's from India, at least originally, none of that has stopped the Trump administration from rather condescendingly making an announcement that Indians and others will now have to prove that they're valuable enough to be allowed onto the H-1B program. And how will that value be measured? Well, by money. After all, Trump wrote the art of the deal. $100,000 is now the annual fee that is being demanded from anyone who is interested in an H-1B visa. To put it into context, and that's the sort of anti-India sentiment we've seen in the last few months on social media, but to put it into context, nearly 70% or little over 70% of all H-1B beneficiaries last year were Indian. 1/5 of all H-1B visas are taken by Indians, and you are talking about numbers that were more than 200,000 in last year and 191,000 in 2023. So how do we understand what's happening? Let's introduce our panel of experts today as we try and decode Trump's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back relationship with India. Joining me is Gurcharan Das, who's of course one of India's best known authors and columnists. Good to see you, Gurcharan. Also joining me today is Chitra Subramaniam, who's of course one of India's best known investigative journalists as well as policy analysts. Good to see you, Chitra. Also joining me is Prasad Dvuri, who's an entrepreneur, a businessman, and in the context of this show, someone who actually originally went to the United States of America, worked there on an H-1B visa, so he has a personal story here, is on a green card presently. And also joining me is veteran diplomat Ambassador Manjeev Puri. I want to start by playing out what happened in the Oval Office today as Howard Lutnick reinforced Trump's announcement with some rather coarse statements. Take a look.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the most abused visa systems in our current immigration system has been the H-1B non-immigrant visa program. This is supposed to allow highly skilled laborers who work in fields that Americans don't work in to come into the United States of America. What this proclamation will do is raise the fee that companies pay to sponsor H-1B applicants to $100,000. This will ensure that the people they're bringing in are actually very highly skilled and that they're not replaceable by American workers. So it'll protect American workers but ensure that companies have a pathway to hire truly extraordinary people and bring them to the United States
We
to
need
work.
workers. We need workers. We need great workers. And this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers. They have to pay the government $100,000, then they have to pay the employee. So it's just not economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land. Train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here. $100,000 a year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board. We've spoken to them about the gold card.
They love it. They love it. They really love it. They need it.
They still want Europe to pay 100% tariffs to China?
Excuse me. H-1Bs are sometimes used by people already in the country legally on other visas or student visas. Does this apply to them or to renewals, or does it only apply to people applying for the first time from abroad?
Renewals, first times. The company needs to decide, do they want, is that person valuable enough to have $100,000 a year payment to the government, or they should head home and they should go hire an American. The whole idea, it's annual, and it's for total, it can be a total of 6 years. So $100,000 a year, so either the person is very valuable to the company and America, or they're going to depart and the company's going to hire an American, and that's the point of immigration. Hire Americans and make sure the people coming in are the top people. Stop the nonsense of letting people just come into this country on these visas that were given away for free. President is crystal clear. Valuable people only for America. Stop the nonsense.
And remember,
So stop the nonsense, show value, or head home. That's the upshot. And of course, there was a line squeezed in there about stop taking our jobs, or, stop letting in people who are taking our jobs, which is only going to feed the kind of anti-India racism that we've seen erupt in the last few months. I want to bring in first thoughts now. I'll start with you, Ambassador Puri. How should we see this? A few days ago, we were talking about a reset, a thaw. Trade talks had resumed. A trade deal is said to be almost finalized and just awaiting the consent of the two principals, Modi and Trump. Now this happens. Now maybe they didn't wake up and say, hey, let's target India all over again. But when 70% of H-1B beneficiaries in 2024 were Indian, the consequence is going to be felt most by Indians.
Barkha, thank you very much. It's very interesting that you've invited me to your show. Both my children failed the H-1B lottery despite graduating from the best schools in America. And they've done well for themselves in life. That's beside the point. Now, look, without any doubt, see, we must try and look at these also in different kinds of silos which fit into the MAGA philosophy, etc. One is a very straightforward one. America for Americans, America first, you can call it whatever you want. And there is this other issue, I want to touch upon it very lightly. There is this issue. We always try to say, racism in America is about the black guys, not us. We're kind of like with you. We're very good chaps. We're almost Jewish, etc., etc. It's hitting you home. And let's understand that without any doubt. No doubt all the tech leaders and so on and so forth, the director of the FBI. Look, there is this bottom line we should understand. Now, the answers to it, you're very right. But, these things operate in different silos. And when we look at this, he had said this. Remember that $5 million gold card, which has now become a platinum card? The question really is, as we were discussing with Prasad before you started the program, the timing, etc. There's no answer because there's one man taking the decision, and why did he do it? Did he necessarily look through this? And issues which will be global, but which will hit you, maybe the Russian oil, all of this. This is bound to happen. Consequences. Look, Barkha, I have no doubt in my mind that this is a double whammy for lots of young people in India who opted for computer science. One is this AI business. Believe me, it's going to take away all those people who are slightly younger than me, who grew up in the Y2K scenario, and India was the biggest beneficiary of all. So this is one side. And then if your dream job is not going to be available, Will Europeans be able to compensate for it? Can we do it in India? In the long run, I hope we can. But in the short run, wow, it's going to be very, very hurtful for all those who thought they were making the right choice. It isn't the right choice anymore. I don't want to use the cliched expressions from Indian films as to what it is. But take tough one. And look at this. You have 24 hours. Now, Barkha, you and I are very sure what happens when you allow the 8 o'clock at night and 12 o'clock things to off. But think about those living in that good country. So let's leave it at that.
I will just say, as somebody who went to grad school in New York and public school in New York, I thank my stars every single day that I came back to live and work here. Because imagine living in the United States of America today, or any other country, when this, visas have become such a fiercely polarizing subject, and you're basically there at the mercy of some foreign government deciding your future. And, I can't imagine that's great for your sense of self-respect, for comfort, so many things. But yes, Gurcharan, the middle class and the upper middle class Indian dream used to be to chase the American dream. There are salaried employees who didn't have money, who have taken loans to send their children to an American university in the hope that after they get their on-the-job training, somewhere their degrees will convert into an H-1B visa. Aspiration in India has been tied in many ways to America. When this happens, it's a kind of slap on your assumption that there's some affinity here between our countries. What is the affinity? America was built on the Statue of Liberty being its sort of shining symbol. Today, Trump has changed all that with one little signature of the pen. Can we unmute Gurcharan, please? Gurcharan, we can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah. Gurcharan, I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. I can't hear you. Okay, I'm just going to ask you to reconnect, and let me take that on to Chitra. Chitra, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me on your show. I think it's a massive self-goal that Mr. Trump has, auto goal that he has scored on himself. Quickly, I think that if we think on our feet, and I think we're capable of doing that, we should be looking at how we can liberate funds for infrastructure for our own country. Start building India the way we want to build it, make in India for Indians. And as Mr. Modi said, not be dependent. The whole logic, there's a whole economic school on dependence here. We should not be depending on other countries. And we are the right mode now. We should be looking at India for Indians. What can we do? Manufacturing. Let's look at the manufacturing sector. Let's not just look at IT sector. Let's look at the manufacturing sector. As you said, you studied in America. So did I. I met my husband there, in fact, and we never wanted to live there for the simple reason that a whole lot of social reasons, including that we don't believe it's a big how can I say, civilization. It's a job market. It's an engine of growth, but that growth is now perhaps struggling or whatever it is. So when I looked at, this is a comment I want to make, when I looked at this, over 40 hours or 50 hours of pomp and pageantry with Mr. Trump, and when they were here in the UK, he didn't open his mouth, and then on the one hand, I saw one civilization, the Commonwealth completely gone down, and America all very confused, not knowing where it is. So India is now in a spot, Barkha, where I think we should defend democratic principles. We are in a position to defend democratic principles, and there are marauders. The chief marauder of the democracy is China. So we should now be several things. India is now in a position to defend democracy. We should defend the principles of democracy. We should go ahead and look at jobs for our people, manufacturing jobs. 20 years ago, I used to work in my company with Baba Kalyani, of Abbott Forge.
Yeah.
There is not a single company in the world that did not have an original equipment from Bharat Forge. So we have these types of visionaries. So let's bring them in. And let's turn.
And I think what you're saying is self-goal by Trump, but an opportunity and a necessity, by the way, now for India to focus on jobs, job creation, but also maybe a chance to retain talent. That said, I said that today in a post on X, and some people agreed and some people violently disagreed and said it's easier said than done. I want to see if Gurcharan can, if we can hear Gurcharan now. Gurcharan, just say something. Let's see if we can hear you. Gurcharan, you're muted from, yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Look,
Yes.
I have a different point of view. I think you're right, Barkha. The middle class dream you talked about, the Indian middle class dream to go to America, etc. So for those people, it's a blow. For America, this is a disaster. For the world, this is a sad time in world history, because there was a time before the First World War, there were no visas. It was an open world. And for India, I think this is an inflection point. It is a inflection point for brain gain. Which is to say that I think this will finally help push innovation in India. This is what happened in China. It was the sea turtles. You know that expression, sea turtles? Mm-hmm. Sea turtles were the returnees, the Chinese returnees who went to China and who now head and are at the top of most Chinese companies who are global and in the high-tech sector. And so what I'm saying is this will give a fillip to the to the GCCs, the capability centers. If they'll do more work, and there'll be new GCCs coming, I think now, that the IT companies, our own IT companies, will expand their operation in India. Because frankly, you can now do almost any work remotely, and especially in the IT sector. So instead of these chaps going away to America, they'll be forced, they'll have to do work in India, and the economics will be such that I think this is actually good news for the country. It will revitalize also, I think, our universities, as some academics too might return home under these circumstances, and they'll help change the stagnant academic culture at home. Ultimately, of course, it depends on India's ability to reduce bureaucratic red tape and other disabilities that we have. Now, as for America,
can I ask you a question? When you say it's an opportunity, possible inflection point for India, there's also two views on whether India should really make this a negotiating point with Trump. I was speaking to an American earlier, and they said, knowing Trump, maybe this is just a negotiating tool for tariffs also. That I'll start at 100K and then I'll bring it down to something. Should India be invested in this debate? Because in the end, in the end, it is about, let me ask my question. In the end, it is about Indians seeking a life outside India. How invested should India be in this negotiation?
Yeah, you see, ultimately the gain is India's. The brain gain is India's. It's something that somebody else has done. It's like Trump actually has done us a favor with those tariffs, because it made us realize that we were uncompetitive, and now which is something in our own interest that we should be doing. So here too, I think on our own we wouldn't have done it, because it's a free world and anybody should be allowed to go and work anywhere. But eventually, what we should see here, some people say, the remittances will be gone. Well, actually, the gains of the software, the profits of the software companies, the GCCs, will far than make up for the loss.
So while Trump didn't mean it to be something helpful, you're saying it could eventually be helpful. Let me come back to you. Let me come back to you on why it's a disaster for America. Let me first bring in Prasad. Prasad. At this point, there's also some confusion. Please clarify if you know better whether this is only for new applicants or whether, because we've seen internal emails from Microsoft and Meta asking their employees to return within 24 hours, and if they're within the United States of America, to not actually go abroad. Go abroad meaning not leave American shores. So this is how nervous the tech sector is, even though Trump is claiming, they're all loving it. All the big tech companies are loving it. These are the kind of internal circulars that are now being, shared with people. And I should say there might be thousands of such people in India right now visiting their parents, visiting their homes, or just home for any other reason, who are now thinking, my God, we've got to get back if we want to keep our visas, though there is some confusion over whether this is retrospective or prospective or, what it is.
Yeah. Hi, Barkha. Thanks for calling me here on this show. It's a very important topic. And this is personally a life story for me for the last 33 years. This is what I've been. So I know a little bit about this. Firstly, it is not clear. But the proclamation order, I've read the whole thing a few times. The proclamation order officially released by the US clearly states that it is an application fee for applications received past midnight of 20th of September, which is 21st September, 12:01 a.m. onwards. It's an application fee for H-1B visas. It does not apply to renewals. And people who already have a petition and a stamp on their passport for H-1B technically should not be affected. But because what the Commerce Secretary spoke, he himself was not clear, because the most important thing in the proclamation is that this $100,000 fee for applications is only valid for 365 days. Mm-hmm. Because the right of actually changing these policies rests with Congress. An executive order can only last for 365 days. After that, it is likely that he may extend it by issuing a new executive order. But this one is only lasting 365 days. That's the first. So what the Commerce Secretary said, none of that actually is true or applicable. That's one thing. I think let's just go and ignore that. Now, coming to a bigger point, I have a few points to make, Barkha. The first, when I was studying computer science, my professor in Bombay used to say, you're learning artificial intelligence, machine learning, decision support systems, neural networks. Finish your course and never discuss this anymore. And when we would ask why, he would say because the employers in India at that time, CMC, which was the Government of India PSU, TCS, these would laugh at you and they will not hire you. So it was very disheartening for us as young students getting into the job pool that such wonderful technologies were so beautifully taught to us by our professors, but we couldn't use them. So we had no choice but to head to the US to use what we had learned. We did not go to the US for greener pastures. We went to the US because the professional opportunity existed. It wasn't money at that time. It was professional opportunity which didn't exist in India. I think today, with this announcement, we have a window where we can actually finally realize that potential and turn this whole thing around. I know there is a short-term pain that our people have to go through, but I think if you look at it, skills and the demand for skills are like flowing water. It'll find its way. So if skills can't go to the US to meet its demand, the demand will come to the skills wherever it exists. So I don't think this is so much of an earth-shattering story as it is, turning out to be. I think this is all going to eventually work out. And you know what? Let us actually see. The Americans have always felt that the H-1Bs are taking away their jobs, that there is talent already existent in America that is being denied because of H-1Bs. Now that they will not have that excuse. Let us see if there's enough talent to fulfill these requirements. So I think a lot of things will get validated in this whole process with this one decision. And I cannot be any less thankful to Mr. Trump. He's actually done a great favor to us.
So there are at least 3 people here who believe this. I don't know about Ambassador Puri, and I'm going to come to him in a moment. Gurcharan, Chitra and Prasad all think that if you play this right, it's going to call out America's bluff that Indians are taking our jobs. Let's see where your qualified people are. Point 1. Point 2, you know what? Brain gain. Ambassador Puri, do you agree or do you believe that Trump is basically socking it to us and we've got to make the best out of a bad situation?
Barkha, I'm very clear in my mind. This term Bangalore was coined in my time. And I know what the Americans felt, and I agree with Prasad that they felt it was bad. I want to make a very simple point to you. You know, what happens in the long run, I don't know. But what happens in the 3-4 years matters a lot. And I'm talking about the young kids who've been opting for computer sciences and so on. Their things are looking extremely difficult for them. This AI already was shattering most of those fellows in their dreams. So, Mr. Gurcharan Das, sir, if you don't mind, first CEO of Procter and Gamble, sir, those days were different. Things were very different. And the young kids today, it's a very shattering kind of thing for many of them. Barkha, you started by asking the question: should we put this in the negotiations basket? Obviously, you therefore believe that's a very problem. That this gain word is something that Rajiv Gandhi used to say. That they're going abroad is brain gain for us. This is all very well. We are not at a place. Tell me, if tomorrow he says I won't let you outsource to India, then what happens to your global capability centers and so on and so forth? Look, this is a hard ball game of power, and it's a game that he's playing only for his own people. Whether it will hurt them or not, frankly, I do believe it will hurt them. I think this tariffs, etc., will hurt them. But will they respond at the ballot box? That's the issue. Barkha,
so do you think, sorry, I'm interrupting you with just a follow-up. Do you think that this should be part of what India brings up with the US, or do you think leave it alone? It's 200,000 Indians and most of them want a green card or an American passport in the end. So this shouldn't be what, I'm just asking the question. What do you think?
So Barkha, look, many people say, and I also agree, that this is part of their sort of nativist policy, and what are you going to really negotiate? Yeah. But we have always negotiated these particular things called, freedom of movement of people for companies and so on and so forth, WTO, all those things. It's going to be a very tough call. You can try to look the other way because you can say it's global, but if 70% are people in India, the middle classes, who they vote for, etc., etc. Let's understand this. It is. First of all, you should understand it's a whammy. Whether you want to do something about it, take it on, develop your own thing, that's entirely up to you. But I want to make one other little point to you on all of this. It starts sending these kind of signals. This is exactly what people told us. You may get your trade deal, but Russia, that will be global. This will be global. What happens if no outsourcing? That will be global. But if there is a certain niche in the global which is yours, then in the end, it becomes your case. It needs, in my opinion, at least a good conversation. Try to see what you can. Remember one thing: $100,000 is already towards the higher end of those who start off on H-1B salary. If somebody tells the company to pay much more, will they? Mr. Lutnick says all the companies said yes. Do you know? After the first inauguration, we haven't seen Mr. Nadella and Mr. Pichai running around, but we've seen Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg doing the round. Yeah. So remember this other aspect. We're not whites. Just remember that. Let me leave it at that.
No, I'm so glad you said it, because one of the things that I have thought through this tariff war before I come to Gurcharan, this great model Indian American community, no offense, Prasad, because you're half and half, you're half here, half there. Where has it been? Where is this great global soft power of India? Not a choo out of Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, anybody else, Shantanu Narayan, all these great names that you're seeing on your screen. Absolute silence. Absolute silence. And most of them grew up in India, studied in India, then went to America and lead these companies. Are they scared? Do they think it's not their monkey, not their circus? And if it's not their monkey, not their circus, should H-1B visas be ours? Just a question. I don't know. I don't know the answer. It's definitely a whammy. How we deal with it is a question mark. And my question to you, Gurcharan, is this. Are you being a little bit of a romantic along with Chitra and Prasad here? Oh, great chance for India, great opportunity for India. For kids coming out of American colleges today, kids from India, coming out of American universities today, it is a terrible environment to graduate in. It is terrible. Let's acknowledge that. Some of us chose to come back because we were happy to just come back home. We weren't driven out. There's a difference in making a choice and being driven out. Gurcharan.
I share that with you, Barkha. I also graduated at one time from an American university. But at that time, I made the choice like you to come back. I could have stayed on, but that's personal. I'm now talking about the nation. I agree with you. For individuals, there is pain. But also, I don't think this is sustainable for America. America is going to realize, after all, you don't create talent like that. Talent is overall scarce. And they're going to find that it takes time and to groom that talent in America. And they're going to find that they are, it's like the tariffs. They're going to be a very big shock coming to America with those tariffs. And similarly, they will find they made a mistake. So I don't even think this is sustainable, this particular type of action. What I feel, though, is that it's not a romantic dream, that it's a brain game. Because I have been connected with some friends from China. And I have seen how these guys, the sea turtles, as they are called, they went back to China. And how they transformed the culture, work culture, they brought technology, they brought modern thinking into Chinese universities, or whether it was in companies. And this fame now, this tremendous push that China is making in technology is as a result of those people who returned back to China. So I feel for the country as a whole, I'm not thinking of the individuals who will feel the pain, but I feel as a country, as long as it lasts, there is a chance. And I know people in the GCCs who are also complaining all the time.
So here's my cynical...
We have a big talent problem, I keep hearing. And now they will have some more talent.
I have a question. Sorry. You stick to your position that there is a chance for great talent, there is an opportunity, at least in the short term. How's to say the people who are seeking lives in the United States of America won't seek them instead in Dubai, in, I don't know, the United Kingdom, in China? We don't know the answer to that. The US isn't the be all and end all. It is a declining hegemon in many ways. The Prime Minister is weighing in. Politics is also creeping up in India. Rahul Gandhi has called Modi a weak Prime Minister again in the context of Trump's announcement. This has happened earlier today. And the Prime Minister has not named Trump, but this is Rahul Gandhi's post there, sharing a Business Standard article on the H-1B and saying, I repeat, India has a weak Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is also speaking, and it's very interesting what he has said today. I am sure he had to improvise this speech because it was moments after Trump made this announcement, and he spoke about how the only enemy that India has is the problem of depending on other countries. Take a look at this.
कामनाएं देता हूं। साथियों, भारत आज विश्व बंधु की भावना से आगे बढ़ रहा है। दुनिया में हमारा कोई बड़ा दुश्मन नहीं है। सच्चे अर्थ में अगर हमारा कोई दुश्मन है तो वो है दूसरे देशों पर हमारी निर्भरता। यही हमारा सबसे बड़ा दुश्मन है और हमें मिलकर भारत के इस दुश्मन को निर्भरता वाले दुश्मन को हराना ही होगा। हमें ये बात हमेशा दोहरानी है, जितनी ज्यादा विदेशी निर्भरता उतनी ज्यादा देश की विफलता।
So it's a very significant comment, Chitra, and as I said, I don't think this is the script he went in with. this morning when he prepared for this event, and then this happened moments after Trump had spoken, shortly after Trump had spoken. He's basically saying there, for anyone of our audience who doesn't follow Hindi, that we don't have any enemies in the world. Our only adversary is our dependency on other nations. The more we depend on other nations, the sort of weaker it makes us. If we want to be successful, we've got to all come together and stop this dependency. Clearly, it is about what we're talking about. Your response, Chitra.
Okay, everybody has a view, and it is a very fast-moving situation. Okay, we don't know what is going to say, so we cannot depend on Mr. Trump. I don't think we should connect this to the trade talks. Keep them very separate, because that is a very different situation. These are jobs, and as you said, children in America are going through a very negative phase. Mr. Macron, the president of France, said, come here, come to Europe. Language is a barrier. There are a lot of European leaders inviting Indians. Perhaps we need to do some quick thinking about that. Can they help us with the visas? Can they help us? Because Europe needs qualified people. They need qualified doctors. They need qualified engineers. We need them. So maybe this needs to do people who don't want to go back to India. Come to Europe, because Europe is looking for people. Germany, France, Italy, they're all looking for people. So that is one avenue that's open. The second thing I would want to make, Nirbharta, we need to start looking at, look at China. You have fireworks here. They send fireworks. Let's look at Sivakasi. How did Sivakasi die? Because we didn't look at our own companies. We should start looking at our own medium and small sectors, the MSMEs, because that's the backbone of any economy. And I insist, Switzerland, let's say 9 million people, 10 global brands. It's the MSMEs. They have no resources in this country. Whether you're looking at Nestle, you're looking at chocolates, you're looking at, financial services. How did they do it? They are, we're looking at Tirupur. Let's look at our Tirupur. Let's look at our medium and small scale industries. And we are damn good at it. Sorry for the Queen's English. But let's bring these people to the table. That day I was talking on your show, let us listen to what they want. Textiles, my God's sake, we make the world's best textiles. When I look at what prices we buy them here and what my traders are getting, it makes me cry. So this needs to change a mindset about taking pride in who you are, taking pride in what you make. And of course, taking pride, IT, but be proud of what you're doing. And maybe you will not have major contracts, but you will make enough to make yourself not dependent on an economy that you don't want to be dependent on. And I will insist on your show that India is today the world's biggest protector of democracy. And I really mean this. Democracy. Yeah.
Well, I will say America is certainly not the biggest protector of democracy. I just can't resist making the point that if in India television hosts had been dropped in the way that a Jimmy Kimmel has, you would have had a slew of American op-eds on declining democracy in India. So America is really not going through its finest hour. Before I come to Prasad, Gurcharan, you had an interjection. I saw your hand go up.
The sentiment is right, but the words are wrong. In other words, I feel this talk, I hope this talk doesn't translate into our thinking on tariffs. Because the reason why the Asian tigers are where they are, including China now and us, is that we have this protectionism. We thought we were a big market and that we would be able to create enough jobs. No country has been able to do that. And so let's be humble that any country that has gone from poverty to prosperity has done it through exports. And exports meaning that we thought that we were a big market, but the reality is we did not have if we had had global brands come and producing in India, our own companies would have become stronger, competing against them. So that, I always worry about this Atmanirbhar. If it means self-reliance, that's good. But if it means self-sufficiency, that's bad.
But may I say, may I say with humility, because all of you are the experts, that there is a middle ground between, let's say, China's plastic goods replacing your mitti ke diyas on Diwali, because just there is a sort of predatory pricing dimension here, scale dimension here. So competitiveness for our own industries is all very good. Look at our weavers. There's nobody who weaves better fabric than our workers, but we have to incentivize them. We have to also look at it as a cultural asset, Gurcharan. Everything is not about money. There is also cultural assets here.
But you see, you need companies. You can't, small scale will not give you create the kind of middle class jobs that you need in the country.
I've seen a lot
the
of
global economy. You need to have trade.
I think everyone wants to react to what you're saying, but it's Prasad's turn, and then we'll take last comments. Prasad, go ahead.
Barkha, when you gave a passionate speech about how you're glad you're back here and all of that, and then suddenly you played this clip of Modi, I almost thought that you wrote that script for Modi himself when he read it out. It was a very interesting coincidence.
I have not been a speechwriter for any politician, and nor do I intend starting to be one now. But
that was a joke. That was a joke.
I know. And replied to in the same spirit. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So a couple of things. We all have heard of Arvind Srinivas. Arvind Srinivas founded Perplexity, the AI company, right?
Yeah.
He was on an H-1B when he founded the company. And he has written how this wait for a green card these last 3 years has been painful.
Yeah.
What will happen to the next Arvind Srinivas? He's not going to stop thinking. He's going to go ahead and found his company. But that will happen here now, because the H-1B route is closed or it's become expensive. So I think we are reading way too much and reacting way too cynically about what has happened. We should hold our horses. We should let the dust settle in a little bit. But I think that in 3 years, a lot of the proof in the pudding will come out. America will also realize how much does it need to depend on H-1Bs, how much of local talent it has, and all of that. But there's one thing about habits, right? Social habits. Once Indians forget about the US and H-1Bs, then even if you offer it, people won't take it because they've already found other avenues. Look at Ambassador Puri in one of your previous shows talked about shrimp exports. Shrimp exports to the US are affected because of tariffs. $5 billion worth of shrimp exports are impacted. What happened? India tried and signed a EECA trade deal with Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and the other 3 countries. They signed a deal with the UK, and of the 5 billion that we lost, 3 billion got replaced because now the shrimps are going into these countries. And I'm sure at some point in the tariff negotiations, when that shrimp exports to the US resume, you would have added an additional capacity. You found a newer market. Same thing will happen even to this. I'm sure there are countries in the UK, the countries like UK, EU, they are waiting for Indian professionals who have not been going to those countries because of the lucrative H-1B policy. Now that that is shut, I am sure these countries will immediately want that talent to come to them. They cannot produce this overnight. We have a factory of producing 1.5-2 lakh computer software engineers in India every year. No other country has this capacity. So I think this is not as much of bad news. The chessboard has been shaken up while in the middle of the game, and I'm sure we'll put all the chess pieces back together on the board, and the game will continue. That's how I see it.
No, I think that last bit I agree with you. I agree that this is a show of power. But, there are, as they say, other fish to fry. In the market, it isn't just available from one seashore or one river. Let's take last comments. I'll start with Ambassador Puri, then Gurcharan, Chitra, and then Prasad. Ambassador Puri, go ahead, sir.
Barkha, look, one thing I like very much is that many of my colleagues on this panel agree with Donald Trump that, reporting to the board every quarter is not a good idea. I love this. This whole business of we will be okay in the long run. Sure, everybody will be good or not. It's a matter of what will happen tomorrow, day after, over the next 3-4 years. That's critical, and that's critical for politics. Remember, if it is going to pain the United States economy, and economics would tell me it should, but if it will, the voters have to act with their votes. And if they don't, then I don't know. You remember what happened here in India 3 years back. So let's understand all of this. This is the way all of this happens. This is a tremendous whammy, and all this European business. I will tell you, years back, the Germans introduced the equivalent of a green card. Joshua Fisher, the then foreign minister, rode in an elephant through Bangalore, not a single person applied. Even today, you see all the migrants in Europe, they all want to go to England. There is something for all of us in this English language. There's a feeling of comfort. I know that's been shaken and shattered, but it's a very important thing in the next few years. And the Europeans are also facing a tremendous backlash. They don't want anybody else.
Yeah.
How does it matter? Do you think your and my color of skin is any different from the Arabs? No. So let's not get too much carried away with all this. This is going to be a hell of a tough one. On the middle classes, unfortunately, middle classes are not just talking classes. They matter in terms of what happens.
No,
And
I think you're right.
We have to put up to it.
Yeah. So let me get Chitra first and then go to Charan, because Chitra, you thought Europe was an alternative sort of destination. I think Ambassador Puri makes a perceptive point about language. One of the reasons for affinity with England and America for aspirational Indians is language. It's also that globalization has to a large degree been westernization. Indians of a socio-economic background, especially now with the internet, have exposure to music, clothing, all of this, that they don't actually relate to a China or, even a France in the same way.
Barkha, nature abhors a vacuum. Okay? Principle. I mean, we will find, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Okay? It's not going to be easy, but that is the nature of the beast. So look at other avenues. I don't believe the Asian tigers, Ambassador, I'm very sorry. The Asian tigers are not democracies. And I genuinely believe in my democracy. On the rough and tumble, whatever it is, I'm very, very proud of the fact that my country is a democracy. We've been through so many issues, but I don't want to live in an Asian tiger. One point. Point B, we've lifted 20 million people out of poverty. We have. It's been difficult. But we'll be able to do this, 1.4 billion. It's not a small thing, sir. So it's going to be slow. It's going to be painful. But that's the way we will have to go. Because maybe, Europe also, look at them, they're in trouble after World War II. They sat on their welfare state. So we are going through a lot of difficulties. The world is going through. But I believe we are in the better part of that difficulty. Simply because we are able to negotiate. We are good negotiators. We are good business people. So let us look at where we are good. That's it.
Yeah. Fair. Go Charan, and then I'll give Prasad the closing word.
Well, I've told you why I think this is good for us, even though it's painful for some middle-class dreams. And I've also told you why it's a disaster for America. But I'd like to spend a second to say why it's bad for the world, for world history. This period reminds one of the period of the 1930s, the period between the wars, between the First and Second World War, with the rise of fascism. And I think that that's the mood. And this particular action and the way Lutnick and others are talking, it's just, to me, sounds like echoes of one of the worst periods of world history. And so I just wanted to put this in another context, that if you look at it from that point of view, I believe that the period which is ending was a period, let's remember, of globalization, of this period lifted over 1 billion people from India and China alone. 600 billion from China, 600 million and 400 million in India. And it was all a result of that openness, that globalization that happened. Now, in globalization, there were some losers, but it is not, the MAGA people are making a mistake. It was not inevitable that America should have declined. If America had the resources, I mean, they had the resources, but anyway, we won't go into that. But the issue, the key point is that let's just remember that the world is not going in the right direction.
Absolutely. No, that I think we can all agree on. Prasad, very quickly, closing comment. I can't
Which
hear
I
Prasad.
forgot to make before, but
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I have a couple of points to make. One, I respectfully disagree with the ambassador. I think, if you remember, majority of Indian students for many decades have gone to Russia and Ukraine to do medicine, and then they've settled down there. So it's not the English language thing. The English language, if there is an option, it's the first choice. But if there's no option, we are very open. We are the most flexible people. Languages have never been a barrier to Indians. So we are very flexible, and I'm sure we'll find other opportunities if we choose to do so. So that's the and again, pardon me, but I am a dead fast optimist. You know, I always knowingly drive into a cave, and I'm sure it becomes a tunnel when I reach there. So that's me. The one thing where I'm really disappointed, I'm actually angry, but I'm trying to temper myself down to disappointment, is with Infosys, Wipro, my former employer Tata's, that for the last 20 years, they have been making a average profit after tax of $1 billion, $20 billion in the last 20 years on an average per company, and have not invested a single rupee in creating software. We have only become the world's body shop. I am very disappointed with these companies, and I hope Trump has forced these companies to now deploy that capital to real product development out of India. And that's what China became very famous for. And this is India's opportunity to do that in the high-tech sector as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point for another program. What happens, by the way, the data shows you that Amazon, and then I think it was Infosys, and then down the line there's Cognizant, TCS, HCL America. This is how they stack up in terms of the number of H-1B visas that they sponsored. And I think Prasad is making a wider point about could they have done more in all this time. Subject for another show, we'll have to leave it there. I will say one thing. I think Trump is on a path that is going to make America the opposite of great again. And that much we can all agree on, though we may have different views on what this means for our country, for our part of the world. It's almost like a sort of a suicide mission. And I think the cave he's driving into is not going to become a tunnel, but we'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much, Ambassador Puri, Gurcharan Das, Prasad Duburi, and Chitra Subramaniam. Always a pleasure. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you soon.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.